After an exciting opening round of the World Touring Car Series Season 4, we head on down to Spain for week number 2 of the championship, rounds number 4 to 6. And, well, what a venue it is. A brand new venue for this championship at Jerez. It's myself, Paul Smith, joined by Connery Maddock here in the commentary box. And Connery, I said it, we had an exciting opening round of the championship. And now, Jerez, new challenge for these drivers.
Yep, it absolutely is. Of course, you know, we've been to so many tracks that have been within the iRacing sphere for a very, very long time. But of course, this is one of those slightly more recent additions to the service. So potentially drivers will not have had much practice in the sim with these cars in particular on this circuit. Of course, it is a circuit that is in other sims. I'm not saying that they're coming in with absolutely no knowledge whatsoever, but it's the first time here on iRacing in this series that we have this circuit. So it's going to be an exciting predicament.
It certainly is, and new challenges brings new opportunities for people. We were at Barcelona last time out. We then head to Jerez for this week. Monza next week in Italy for week number 3. We then have a week off before we head to Imola, then the Indianapolis Road Course and Road America to finish off the first half of the season. Sebring, Watkins Glen and VIR for the third quarter. And then the final portion of it, a true touring car classic trio of tracks. Brands Hatch, Donington Park and Silverstone. And speaking of touring car action, well, let's have a look at how things stand at the moment in the championship, and what a start to the season it was for Pure Sims esports driver Ross McFarlane in his Hyundai. It was 200 points he received in the opening round of the championship. Jack Sedgwick, though, in his Audi in the Was Cooking by CSS car, just 7 points behind him. Wojciech Zvinovic in his Semper Racing Honda is in third place, 20 points back from the championship leader. Just 3 points behind him is Sindra Setsource as well. David Baker, Alexandra Gonzalez, Karsten Geisler, Stefan Scheller, Esteban Rodriguez and Team Reinhardt rounds out the top 10 of your pro driver standings. In the AM driver standings, well, Craig Williams in his Was Cooking by CSS Audi, he took the spoils last time out in AM. 147 points for him. 9 points back though is Martin Shirley in his RD Simsport Honda, and then just a further 4 points back from him is Mickey Pollard in his AI Racing Summaries DCW Racing yellow car. Semper Racing's Wayne Douglas is in fourth ahead of Andy Shield. Andreas Gilman, Damon Mulqueen, Stuart Bickley, Paddy Faulkner and Alexander House rounds out the top 10 of AM. Then, in your pro team standings, there's just 6 teams in this championship and it's led by Pure Sims Esports, 61 points clear of Semper Racing in second place. Third for Carla Esports, new to the championship, new to sprint racing in touring cars. They're on the 91 points top of the championship leaders so far. Fast Repair Motorsport, Wave Italy and Pure Sim SimLab round out the rest of your pro teams. Then Pro-Am, 8 teams here for this championship. It's Was Cooking by CSS leading that one by a healthy 94 points over Impulse Racing. RD Simsport are in third place, just 2 points back, so a close battle in this one because 2 points back from them is the AI Race Summaries DCW Racing Yellow team. Was Cooking Racing Adventures, they're in 5th ahead of the AI Summaries DCW Racing Blue. 3M UK and Team Mad round out your top 8.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So that's how things stand there in the standings. But Connery, we've got about 2 minutes remaining of qualifying.
Yes, we do, and sorry for stepping on your toes there. Thank you very much for the roundup of how the standings look at this very early stage of the championship. Of course, there are so many more rounds to go, a multitude of races to get under our belts before we have any really decent perspective on how the season is going to turn out. But you did mention, well, it's great to see that Ross McFarlane has got himself started off on a very, very good foot indeed. He struggled a bit in portions of last season, especially up against the Sim RC Armada and having to deal with his teammates in the same championship as well. So maybe the circumstances are a little bit different here at Jerez in this next season of the World Touring Car Series.
Yeah, certainly. But as I say, it's opportunities. There are opportunities to be had here in this championship with the new track. There are just a couple of, just one penalty, an exclusion for qualifying for Dan Martin after round 1. So he's going to be starting from the back of the grid in race number 1 here. Great opportunity for these drivers. Ross McFarlane, though, is the man who's set the pace at the top of the standings here, Connery, but it's only 0.03 of a second between him and Wiebe Nijkamp.
And it's a further 0.03 of a second between Nijkamp and Setsos as well, and then 9 thousandths back to P4 to Jack Sedgwick. So we have a very, very, very tight field here today. At least if we base everything here off of qualifying, we've got 19 drivers within 0.9 of a second at the very front of the field, which is definitely a very good sign of things to come. But the qualifying session has just about drawn itself to a close, and we will be able to get ourselves our starting grid up here imminently.
We certainly will. So it is going to be Ross McFarlane on front row of the grid, and he will be starting that one off alongside him, Wiebe Nijkamp, with Sindre Setsos and Jack Sedgwick on row number 2. The third row, David Baker and Wojciech Savinovic. Row number 4 for Esteban Rodriguez and Stefan Scheller, with Damien Harris and Dr. Naveed Hussain on row number 5. Naveed Hussain will be looking for a better round this time. Jake Blackhall and Alexandra Gonzalez round out row number 6. 7th row for Andreas Gilman with Ben Palmer, Carsten Geisler and Ismail Habib Jimenez rounding out the 8th row of the grid. 9th row, Craig Williams and Tim Reinhardt. 10th row of the grid is Martin Shirley and Tony Weishaft, with Mickey Pollard, Joseph Villa, then Magic Sakovic and Stein Wingman. Andy Scheel and Alexander House, then with Elliot Roberts and Stuart Bickley sharing the 14th row of the grid. 15th row of the grid for Damon Mulqueen and Slawomir Jaworski. Final few drivers on the grid: Ian Manners, Patrick Faulkner, Rob Sutherland, Scott Malcolm, and as I said, Dan Martin starting at the back of the grid. So we're just getting ourselves prepared for the opening of this race then, and the drivers getting themselves set. They've been practicing all evening. They've been having practice sessions during the week as well, so the drivers should be well versed in how things go around here. We're on the moto layout of this Jerez, or this circuit. Now the revs will rise. 20 minutes of action. 3 20-minute races here in the World Touring Car Series. Green flag. We're underway here for race number 4 of the championship, and it's a good start by Ross McFarlane. Sindre Setsos looking to make a move into second place around the outside of turn 1, and they all concertina up together as they're heading towards a tight turn 2 at Michelin, down into this tight hairpin of a corner, and then you sweep round to the left through this rather accelerating corner of 3 into turn number 4. Again, another sweeper for them as they head on towards turn number 5. And this corner is important here because, Connery, this lines you down to the longest straight and a great overtaking opportunity.
Yeah, getting your line right through here, absolutely crucial to be able to allow yourself to get a bit of a run all the way down this straight. We got a bit of side-by-side action going on, or at least attempted side-by-side going on in the background there. This is the bottom end of the top 10 as they fan out 3 wide there. Geisler's involved in that one. Same with him and then I spot a Craig Williams, his very recognizable car, that bright orange, getting himself involved as well. Williams down the inside of Jimenez quite comfortably as Jimenez now has to defend from Reinhardt behind.
Yeah, and that's the problem here in the opening laps. Rodriguez has disappeared. I think he's having connection problems for Esteban. He is back, so yeah, I think it is connection problems for him. But with this layout, this particular moto layout, you miss out the chicane there. It's a sweeping right-hander. So easy to pick up an off-track incident point there, and you are limited in the amount of incident points you can get before you get a drive-through penalty. That's 18 for a race. But heading out the final corner then, it's 13 turns, 4.4 kilometres, and already lap number 1 in the books then. So it is Ross McFarlane from Wiebe Nijkamp and Sindre Setsos. Jack Sedgwick ahead of Wojciech Savinovic. David Baker in his traditional 6th place right now. Best of your hand drivers, Andreas Gilman in 14th. We're now on board Sindre Setsos in that What's Cooking Racing Adventures Audi. It's Hyundai, Honda, 2 Audis, and then 3 Hondas. So the Hondas and Audis are really dominating the top 10.
Yeah, well, at least they'll see we see more than one manufacturer be dominant here. So the balance performance got themselves perhaps a little bit better than seasons previous. It's good to see some good progress on that front, but as we're very firmly in towards lap number 2, you see the vast majority of the entire field has gotten themselves strung out single file here at this early stage. This is sort of a more calm affair compared to what we're used to seeing. It's kind of reminiscent of the first 2 races, at least, of the previous race meeting.
Yeah, I mean, the first 2 races of the season at Catalonia were actually really good races, I thought. Jake Blackall's run wide there in his Honda. The Pure Sims Esports driver from Australia, of course, was involved in a contentious incident last time out, and he felt aggrieved about it. Well, he's dropped down the order to 14th now, so Andreas Gilman gaining another place, the AM driver, and we've got another slow driver, that's Andy Shield. Series admin Andy Shield trying to get back up to speed in his 3M Honda and the RD SimSport car behind. All manner of out of shape. He's kept it going in the correct direction at least, but that was some really sketchy stuff there.
Yeah, and well, at least he does get himself alongside Scott Malcolm there as they head their way through the final corner. So decent amount of battling and action going on here towards, well, this is the very tail end of the field, and the day hasn't gone so well for RD SimSport at the moment, as they have Rob Sullivan P33, Dan Martin all the way down in P35. Of course, a new pro driver for this season after his stellar performance last time around in the AM category in the previous season. But this is a race start to forget for the moment for Dan.
Yeah, I mean, he did start at the back of the grid as well,
yeah.
So he's not being able to progress forward here in this race like he would have liked to. 7 places gained for Paddy Faulkner in the opening of this race. Andy Shield will drop 6 places with his slow running there that we saw towards the end of that last lap. But up at the front then, Wojciech Savinovic in his Honda Civic. Can he hang on to the back? He just seems to be losing a little bit to Sedgwick and those in front, as I do believe Andy Shield has been involved in something, because he's dropped all the way down to last place, 35th overall. So something has happened out there that's taken him down the field.
Let's see if we can get a look at it. That's the very tail end of it. So we'll have to potentially get ourselves wound back just a little bit further. It was a big tangle, so this might give us a bit of a better idea. Yeah, looking down the inside there, and then coming off the corner. That was Jaworski, I think, the 83.
Jaworski, yeah. I don't know whether he's just giving it a boot. I'm going to give benefit of the doubt and just say he's giving it an absolute boot full of throttle, and he's ended up then collecting Andy again. Let's have a look then. Here we go. So we're looking from above. So it's going to be Shield. Is he going to make a move into the hairpin? This is the favoured overtaking spot here. He does make... It's not really a move that's on there. Jaworski's... It doesn't look great, that, in my opinion. And it did look a little bit of afters to me. We'll go back to live pictures, though. And up at the front, McFarlane, under some intense pressure from the Impulse Racing driver of Vibe Nijkamp. New driver to the series. We only saw him last time out, and well, he seems to have really acclimatised himself.
Well, is it that his friends call him? Is it Wally or something like that?
Wobbly.
Wobbly, there we go. Wobbly. So yeah, apparently his friends always get his first name wrong. So therefore, it just has the nickname Wobbly. Well, performance hasn't been so wobbly in the opening couple of laps here. Like you said, he's really applying the pressure to the back of Ross McFarlane. McFarlane has not been able to get away whatsoever here at the front of the field, and this perhaps might be expected because of how close the qualifying times were. Not a lot to separate these drivers at the very front of the field, with some of them only being separated by maybe a few hundredths, maybe a few thousandths.
Two stalwarts of touring car racing on iRacing are also putting each other under pressure. It's that battle for 5th and 6th place. Wojciech Savinovic and David Baker. Baker is all over the back of Wojciech. These two know each other better than some couples know each other. They've been racing against each other for years, and they've had some epic battles over the years. And both the highest respect for each other as well. You always get good action between the two of them. Wojciech just point away just that slight bit from Baker, but both of them, crucially though, in the Honda Civic, so it's not like it's a different car having strengths here and there. It's where the drivers and where the setups that they're running are favouring each other.
Absolutely, that difference can really fluctuate, not only depending on the circuit. Of course, some tracks would be more suited to the different makes and models of cars that we have, but also maybe even different times of day you have to drive things slightly differently. Let's have a look at what the temperature is doing at the moment. 31 degrees Celsius on the circuit at the moment, which is quite warm considering the fact that we have, well, not at the very peak of the day here at the moment. We're just shortly before midday. Usually we'll see peak temperatures around about 2 p.m. So not the hottest it could be, but also not the coldest either. It's sort of more of a moderate condition here.
Elliot Roberts has come to a standstill out there. Oh, he's out in the weeds, is Elliot. He's getting himself back going there. That's at turn 9 in towards turn 10. So something's happened to Elliot here. Let's have a look. And, well, he's gone down the inside. There was a little bit of a push and a shove there, and the 96 just clips him round. The 96 is Patrick Voltner. Oh, Paddy. Hopefully, there's nothing in... I don't think there is anything in that, to be honest, but certainly it's not ideal. It's suboptimal, I think, is the phrase that me and Peter Mackay like to use.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just maybe a little bit of too much leaning on each other, heading their way down the sort of that little straight bit of road before the corner entry, and unfortunately they do come into a little bit of a tangle, as is what happens with some of the bits of contact here on iRacing sometimes. But back at this front of the field, we got less, well, we're at the halfway point of the race now, just under 10 minutes left to go. Vibe Nijkamp still continuing to apply the pressure to the back of McFarlane. McFarlane has been looking very solid though so far in that Pure Sims esports car. He hasn't really been forced into any mistakes, any errors, which might open the door here for Vibe. So McFarlane definitely showing a lot of experience behind the wheel of that 127. And potentially Vibe might have to be a little concerned that maybe Sindre Setzel says something towards the back end of this race, maybe even Cedric as well, who's also a part of that lead group. But we do see a definite split there. You can see that on the camera there, a split between the top 4 and basically the rest of the field.
Yeah, it has definitely got that separation, so Savinovic just not able to hang on to the front four. So it's McFarlane, Eikamp, Setsos and Sedgwick are the front four, then ahead of Savinovic, Baker, Rodriguez, Harris, Naveed Hussain and Stefan Scheller rounding out the top 10. Your AM drivers, the best of them is Andreas Gilman in 13th place right now. He's a couple of places ahead of Craig Williams, who's the second placed AM driver in 16th overall. And then not far behind him is Mickey Pollard, third place in class in AM, 19th overall. So there is racing throughout the field. It's just that in this opening race, everybody just seems to have, as you mentioned, Connor, just got themselves into single file, got themselves spread out a little bit. And maybe just the drivers who can look after their tyres a little bit better in the opening of the race will have a bit of fortune towards the end.
I mean, it could be just the nature of the circuit for many reasons. Of course, these sweeping corners don't really lend themselves too well to a lot of side-by-side action. So that could be one reason, or again, it could be the reason that the corners are so sweeping that again they eat up the tyres and you wanting to save in these early stages as well. So it could be the same effect for just for two different reasons there. But I have to wonder if the heat will then be turned up towards the end of this session as drivers go for those little last gasp moves to try to improve position. Especially those towards maybe the bottom end of the top 20 when they know a reverse grid pole position might be on offer if their luck works out. But as far as these guys at the very front, the front four, there's still no signs of any movement.
And that's something that, apart from Jack Sedgwick looking at Sindra Setsos then into turn one. This is interesting. So the two Audis and Sedgwick deciding now's the time to pull the trigger and to start trying to move forward. But the problem with them doing that through turns 1 and 2 is that they've allowed a 1 second gap between themselves and the front two. So in that change of position, and of course they are, even though they come out of the same awning with the Was Cooking Racing Adventures, they are actually different teams, the Setsos and Sedgwick. So they are competitors out there on track. McFarlane on board, looking back at Nijkamp. With 6.5 minutes remaining, you see that concertina rope as they reach the apex of the hairpin at turn 6 that was made so famous. And I swear, in the world of four-wheel motorsport, Formula 1 is known for one incident, and it was at that turn 6 between Schumacher and Villeneuve.
Absolutely. Hopefully you don't get any repeat of that today, although I feel like I'm potentially jinxing it at this point. But we have plenty of races to go. We have the end of this one, then we have 2 more afterwards. So stories yet to be told here. Ross McFarlane, though, still holding on to this P1 for the moment. We did see a little bit of a look on this lap from Viva. It wasn't really a one that would have resulted in anything. However, a show of the nose is still a show of the nose, and it shows his eagerness to press on forwards, and the fact that Ross can't really get a break at the moment.
It's a sign of intent, is what it is, and it's trying to get into the head of the driver that you're racing against in front of you. The problem here, though, that Vibe finds is that he's got one of the most experienced drivers, not just in this series, but in the whole of World Sim Racing. Ross McFarlane, of course, 4-time World GT champion, and that was 4 in a row as well. It wasn't just 4 total championships, it was 4 in a row for Ross. And then also a former champion in this championship as well in the opening season, I want to say, but I've just completely gone blank there. That's typical, isn't it? As soon as you want to start quoting stats, you just go blank. Yes, it was the opening season of the championship for Ross McFarlane in season number 1, winning it, of course, dramatically on the final day at Daytona International Raceway. So Ross knows what it takes to compete in a championship like this at the very front and to deal with the pressure.
He absolutely does, and that will come in very, very handy in situations exactly like this one. He's see a gap still being maintained back to Cedric after Cedric and Setsource had that little bit of a duel, although just looking at it visually, Setsource is starting to be dropped a little bit here as Cedric tries his best to be in contention for 2 steps further up on the podium than he is here at the moment. Three different teams represented inside the top 3 here as well, which is absolutely fantastic to see. Coming across the line then, well, this is going to be a very, very tough one, Paul, for Viva to try to manage, because your overtaking opportunities are pretty limited at this circuit, and like you said, up against someone with so much experience like Ross McFarlane, it's very, very hard to manufacture that opportunity.
It certainly is, but you can do it. We have seen it done as well to Ross, so you know, it can be done. It's not like it's an impossible job. And if Vibe has been able to look after his tyres in the Impulse Racing Honda, of course, different cars, the Honda chassis really is a good, solid chassis. It's really good for cornering. You just look at the grunt that the Veloster had in front there, just coming out of that turn 5 into turn 6. This is a really heavy braking zone. Tight hairpin, first gear in this Honda. And you got this quick left-hander before a dab of the brakes into turn number 8. It's a tricky part of the circuit is this, actually. I was racing on it in a GT4 car last night. And yeah, it is a tricky circuit to get right and to get into the groove of, is this venue. But we've got 2.5 minutes remaining, so at the line, we're going to have 1 lap remaining here, Conor.
Indeed we are, and still no obvious opportunities arising for Nykamp. So he's going to have to try and do something here as we're coming up towards the final lap to try and get himself on the top step of the podium. And he's also got a Craig Setup Shop car in his wing mirrors as well. That's Jack Sedgwick, who has made some good progress over the last lap or so to try and reduce the gap to the top 2. So we might have a 3-horse race here for P1 on this final lap if we're lucky, as we see, well, we had 150, excuse me, coming across the line here. We might actually have one more lap than we were expecting.
Yeah, it's going to be close, actually, is that. Last lap times, 147.7 for Ross McFarlane, 147.6 for Nykamp, 147.3 for Cedric. So I really do think that Cedric had played it canny, sat at the back of the pack of that group of 4, looked after his tyres, and has now been able to push on here in the latter stages of that race, because that Audi does look menacing, as any photocopier salesman will attest to. Down into the hairpin at 6, but McFarlane feeling the need to just protect the inside line there. Through 6 they go, and now really you've not really got any opportunities until the final corner at turn 13 here, so Ross can just focus forward for the time being. Nykamp is not giving this up, not without a fight. He's got Cedric right there with him. Oh, looking to the inside. That's not really a place to do that. Fortunately, hasn't cost him any time. 32 seconds remaining. This is going to be tight at the line as to whether we get the white flag, because we haven't actually had the white flag graphic come up on the screen yet. I think the sim doesn't even know what's going to happen here as we go into the final corner. Now, out of the hairpin. Race to the line, 10 seconds remain. I think we may get 1 extra lap here. We will. So the final lap of the race starts, and if you're going to make a move, you've got to make it count here.
Absolutely, and if you're Weber, you're getting concerned about the Craig Setup Shop car. You have to get to the inside for the hairpin, use that short wheelbase to really rotate the car around and gain the advantage, but no such luck there in towards turn number 2, in through this sweeping sequence now. And as every corner goes by, it starts becoming much more likely that Ross McFarlane will take the race win here. But Cedric has really been pushing there in P3.
He certainly has, and you can see the different lines that they're taking. So Ross taking a very wide entry into turn number 5. He's trying to carry the speed out in the corner, and I think that's just been the difference for him down this straight. Jack Sedgwick, we know he's not shy in making a move, and he's making that move now into 6. Oh, there's a little bit of a rub, a bump and a barge. There's a front bumper gone off of that Audi, and so there's a squeeze back from Vibe. He doesn't appreciate that little bit of a bump and a barge, but it's not touring car racing without a bit of paint swapping. There was a bit more as well. Vibe back to the front, and I bet Ross McFarlane is looking in his rear view mirror and saying, thanks boys, thanks a lot, that takes the pressure off me. But still, it's close fighting here for second place, and Jack Sedgwick clattering over the curbs there as we're coming into the final couple of corners. Turn 11 and then turn 12, these really fast sweepers. Last chance into the hairpin. It's going to be a heck of a dive from there for Jack Sedgwick, and he's not going to bother. So it is Ross McFarlane from Pure Sims Esports from Scotland is going to be a race winner once again across the line. He's race winner here in the opening race of the evening here in the World Touring Car Series. Looking further back, Andreas Gilman is going to come across the line as your best am. But we're actually looking at the right race for 23rd, because Maciej Sakovic and Stuart Bickley, 23rd, 24th, have also got behind them Dan Martin from the back of the grid, compromised near the start of the race. He's just going to miss out on a potential reverse grid pole position. But there, for Impulse Racing, is your top am, Andreas Gilman. Not a bad opening race for Impulse Racing, getting the second place overall and the leading am.
Yeah, a very intriguing fight at the end there at the front of the field. Sedgwick really coming alive in those last couple of laps of the race. Got himself alongside Nijkamp, but Nijkamp was able to hold on. Sedgwick losing a bumper in the process, at least on our side of things. But the race ends with McFarlane taking the race win here. First race win for this race meeting. We've got 2 more races to go here at Jerez. But before we do so, I think we need to do a little bit of a spinny wheel.
Yeah, we do. We need to decide who is going to be on pole position for race number 2 of the evening. So a selection of numbers from 12 to 24. And as the wheel spins down, we will see what that reverse grid draw will be, and the answer is going to be 16. So 16th place, and I know there'll be somebody very happy about that in the results, but we will take you through your race results to show you what that is. Ross McFarlane then for Pure Sims Esports wins that race by 0.7 of a second over Vibe Nijkamp for Impulse Racing, but that gap does not tell the story of that race. Jack Sedgwick for the Was Cooking Racing by CSS in 3rd. Sindre Setsource in the Racing Adventures car in 4th place. Wojciech Savinovic 5th ahead of David Baker in his traditional 6th place. Esteban Rodriguez 7th ahead of Damien Harris, with Dr. Naveed Hussain rounding out the Wave Italy duo. Ben Palmer for Freedom UK rounds out the top 10. In 11th place is Alexandre Gonzalez, with Andreas Gilman, your best AM driver, in 12th place in the end for him. Jake Blackall 13th after having an incident earlier on. He dropped 2 places in that race ahead of Karsten Geisler. Stefan Scheller, and then on pole position in race number 2 of the evening is the Was Cooking by CSS driver Craig Williams, who was also the 2nd placed AM driver. Tim Reinhardt just misses out on that pole position ahead of Ismail Habib Jimenez, with Mickey Pollard rounding out the podium for AM in that AI Racing Summaries DCW Racing yellow car. Martin Shirley for RD Simsport rounds out your top 20. 21st for Tony Weishaft, with Stein Wiedmann in 22nd. 23rd for Maciej Sakovic, with Stuart Bickley 24th. Dan Martin, good drive from him from the back of the grid to up 10 places into 25th for the RD Simsport driver. Alexander House ahead of Patrick Faulkner. Ian Manners, Andy Scheel and Josef Villa rounding out the top 30. Then the rest of you finishers, and they all did finish here. Elliot Roberts ahead of Rob Sutherland, Slavomir Jaworski and Damon Mulqueen. Scott Malcolm rounds out your 35 cars. So as I say, one driver will be very happy about that result will be Craig Williams for Craig Setup Shop. Incredible reverse grid fortune for him. It always seems to pan out for him, doesn't it, Connery?
Yeah, it always does, and for the Frank Bieler of the series, as Peter Mackay would always say, it's a great opportunity for him to really do quite well in that Audi. Of course, the Audi not actually as terrible as it was in the previous season. I was searching for a nicer word to use, but one really didn't come to mind. But so that actually really helps his chances, because a lot of the good results he had in the previous seasons did come off the back of reverse grids, and even getting himself a win in that instance as well. So again, this is absolutely massive for Craig Williams. It's really going to help him out as far as the AM standings are concerned, because he was leading that coming into this as well, and his closest rivals didn't. Well, he gained points over his closest rivals in that previous race there, so it's all looking pretty good here for Craig Williams. It just means that he needs to convert in that second race now, which is definitely easier said than done.
It certainly is. Just looking at the results, like I said, the top two, I don't think that gap shows just how close it was throughout the entirety of that race between Ross McFarlane and Vibin Nijkamp. I think Nijkamp is just getting himself bedded in to the championship here. Nuffa, awesome race number one for Ross McFarlane. That's 2 now for the season of race 1 wins. He seems to have the knack of getting to the front and staying at the front in race number 1, but it's his ability to work through the field in races 2 and 3 that is where he really is impressive.
Yeah, he just scythes through the field like a hot knife through butter. It's amazing to see, and of course, one of the ones that was also previously pretty good at that, Corentin Guinness, but of course he doesn't happen to be here for the season, so it's so he is the only one potentially that would perhaps more easier than others try to get himself through this field here, but it's not an easy task, especially with how close a lot of the top 10 was in particular in that qualifying session, and how difficult we found in a lot of cases to overtake here at this circuit as well. So unless he actually gets a barnstorming start and gets a couple of positions done off of the first lap, then potentially it might be a bit more of a struggle here for him to work his way through than it would be at perhaps one of the other circuits on the calendar. But I'll never say never. Every time I doubt a driver, somehow they surprise me, so I'm not going to speak any further.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's so easy to doubt some driver. I'm just looking across at my timing screen. The one thing I am noticing that Ross McFarlane is the standout in the Hyundai in his Veloster, because the next best Hyundai was actually in 11th place of Alex Gonzalez in his Elantra. So the Hyundai has been affected by a balance performance adjustment in terms of the series themselves. The series administrators went and put an additional balance performance adjustment on the Hyundai cars, and I think what you're seeing here is that instead of last season where we had a grid full of Elantras with a couple of Velosters and a singular Honda and a singular Audi, we've got a really big mix of Hondas and Audis, but not that many Hyundais now.
Yeah, so that's just the way things evolve where you have categories with multiple manufacturers in it. It happens in sim racing, happens in real life as well, the ebb and flow of that one. However, both the changes that iRacing have done and the changes and the slight adjustments that the race administrators have done has really helped in terms of making things just that little bit more equal. Of course, you're not necessarily going to get it absolutely perfect every single time. It's unreasonable to expect that from anyone, especially when you have such a variety of tracks that we're going to over the course of the season. But you get it close enough to make it exciting and to make it that it's not impossible for a manufacturer to win.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's it. You've got to run that tightrope of having a field as evenly spread as possible in terms of a balanced performance, but you also don't want to have one car being the favoured car either. You want to try and do that, but you don't want to over balance the performance adjust a car either. Well, I know you're all riveted by the talk about the performance of touring cars, but what we will do is we'll just step aside and hear from our series sponsors here, but stick around for race number 2 of 3 in the World Touring Car Series from Jerez. Welcome back then to the World Touring Car Series Season 4 here, coming to you from the circuit at Jerez. 4.4 kilometres in length. We are running the MotoGP layout, so it is 13 turns around this venue. Now, track conditions, I know that everybody's waiting with bated breath, but 38 degrees Celsius is the track temperature. We are past the hottest point of the day though, Connery. 4:30 in Sim. We should see towards the end of the evening with race number 3 those temperatures start going down again.
Yeah, we should do. Of course, there's an element of cars running on it which will affect things as well, especially with the rubber that's been laid down. Not all that much in a race as short as this, but definitely a little factor. They're very lucky that it's mostly cloudy. In fact, they're keeping those temperatures down in a slightly more reasonable range, because if we had clear 22 degrees Celsius at the latitude that Jerez is at, it might be a bit more of a concerning a temperature, but everything's looking fine there. Maybe the winds being at 18 kilometers an hour, perhaps something that might just unsettle the car one way or the other. Maybe not so much here in these touring cars, but again, all these little things can be used as racing driver excuses.
Well, I mean, you say that. I mean, I was up at Knockhill on the weekend with our good friend Peter Mackay, and they had the TCR UK there this weekend, and it was quite a stiff breeze. I mean, it was a stiff breeze going when you're going up from the hairpin towards the start and finish line. It was head on that way, so it was coming from the east, and a couple of the drivers were asked, you know, does that affect the handling of the car and how it's performing? They said, well, not really in the corners, but it does give us a nice push down towards the hairpin. So you just got to make sure you brake just that little bit earlier. So with these cars, it's more, if you're going into a headwind, it can slow the cars down a little bit and have a bit more of a slipstream effect for others.
Absolutely, that's what we tend to see, especially if that headwind is pretty strong, can exacerbate the slipstream effect at times. But of course, it's something that we usually talk about here in iRacing. Its effect is minimal, but you know, sometimes you do just need that very slight edge to be able to get yourself alongside and then potentially ahead here as well. But as we're looking towards race number 2, of course, we have that reverse grid pole position with Craig Williams at the very front of the field. We have to see how this one gets mixed up, because in our first race meeting of the season, we tended to see for both the reverse grids quite a high reverse grid up into the 20s, but we haven't got that this time around. So does that change the dynamic of these sorts of races when you have a low reverse grid versus a high reverse grid?
I mean, it's less cars for the drivers who were at the top of the standings in race 1 to actually work their way through. But it's also you're also racing against drivers that were that bit quicker as well from race 1 that you're having to work your way through as well. So that can offset it a little bit. It's all about having a good start and trying to progress forward that little bit when the cars are all as close as possible, because we saw in race number 1, didn't we, that the field did spread out quite a bit around here, but maybe it's the nature of the track, we'll find out, because race number 2 last week, the field was kept pretty packed up at Barcelona.
Yeah, it was, and we saw, at least in the initial stages here, that was also the case as well, with everyone getting single file. It wasn't until maybe the second half where we started to see that separation, in particular inside of the top 10. So potentially that might be a theme that will continue today, but we just have to wait and see, and actually we won't get very long to have to wait before we see how at least the start of this race number 2 goes, as the warm-up session draws itself to a close and we get ourselves our grid for the first reverse grid of this race meeting.
We certainly do, so we will take a look at that grid very shortly indeed, because it is going to be Craig Williams on pole position here in his Craig Setup Shop car. That's going to be on pole position. Alongside him is Stefan Scheller for Team Heusingveld. That's going to be an interesting dynamics between those two. Carsten Geisler and Jake Blackhall, row number 2, with the third row of Andreas Gilman and Alexandre Gonzalez. Ben Palmer, row number 4, with Dr. Naveed Hussain, Damien Harris and Esteban Rodriguez on row number 5. The 6th row, David Baker and Wojciech Savinovic. Row number 7 for Sindre Setsource and Jack Sedgwick. The 8th row of the grid is the front 2 from race number 1, Vibe Nijkamp and Ross McFarlane, and then the drivers start where they finish. So Tim Reinhardt and Ismail Habib Jimenez. Then it's Mickey Pollard and Martin Shirley rounding out the 10th row of the grid. Row 11 is Tony Weishaft with Stein Wienman alongside him. Magic Sakovic and Stuart Bickley on row number 12. 13th row of the grid for Dan Martin. See how he progresses forward with Alexander House. Patrick Faulkner and Ian Manners sharing the row number 14. Row 15, Frandy Shield and Josef Villa. Elliot Roberts and Rob Sutherland with Slavomir Jaworski and Damon Mulqueen. Scott Malcolm rounds out your 35-car grid. So about 20 seconds before we start this second race of the evening. It's all about that start. Get a good launch, get yourself progressed forward, and get yourself the best positions that you can possibly get. Drivers, though, they'll be wanting to keep themselves nice and clean and tidy. If we can have racing like we had last week in the first 2 races, then that would be absolutely magnificent. But the revs will rise. Race number 2 of the evening is underway. It is a green flag in the air, and it's a better start from Scheller on second place. He's going to come up alongside Craig Williams in towards turn number 1. Williams has the inside though as they go through turn 1. They're 2 by 2 by 2 heading through turn number 1 into turn number 2. They go, and Williams is still in front right now in the lead, so he slots in front of Stefan Scheller. There's Carsten Geisler in 3rd place, but behind him, Jake Blackhall, Andreas Gilman, they're duking out for 4th place. And right behind them, Ben Palmer's getting involved and interested in this one. Heading into turn 5 for the first time. It's cold tyres for all of these drivers. And Blackhall's going around the outside of 5. If he can hold it out there, he'll have the better speed off the corner. Down towards turn number 6 in the hairpin. He's trying to crowd Gilman across there, and Blackhall's done it. But round the outside, Ben Palmer in that 3M UK car. My goodness, what an opening to this race.
Yeah, trying to follow through in the tyre tracks there at Blackhall, and he's found a lot of success from that. Gilman continuing to drop back. He's is at risk of getting freight trains there if Damien Harris was able to get a nose to the inside there. But look at this gaggle here in the midfield. This is around about the top 10. Savinovic, Hussein, Rodriguez, McFarlane trying to work his way through field on the outside, 3 wide. This is incredible stuff there as the Pure Sims cars try to pick their way through. Cedric as well. This is crazy stuff with some of your front runners all involved in the thick of it. This big sideways moment.
Oh, that was a big slide there then through there. Oh, out into the gravel. 3, 4, 5 cars. Got to be careful with that. We're almost going 4 wide into the hairpin. There's contact. McFarlane's half spun. He keeps it going though. Boot full of throttle helps him pull the car out of that spin as we go across the line then. It is Williams from Scheller from Geisler at the front. But it's this racing in this mid-pack that's the most intense here in the opening laps. There's an RD Simspot car diving down the inside involved in all of that. There's Magic Sakovic in the Team Mad car. He doesn't know whether he's come on going right now. Contact with the Carlson Esports car. And around the outside then is the 73 of Mickey Pollard on Stein Veenman.
Yeah, this is crazy stuff, and they still haven't finished here in the second half of the field with the side-by-side action as Pollard and Veenman go side by side together, the two teammates, but they're able to settle their differences. A little bit of a shove there from Veenman onto Weisskraft as Weisskraft now has to angle towards the inside here at the very end of this straight and trying to go late on the brakes to try and gain the advantage. Does bring it alongside, does get himself ahead by corner exit and splits the two teammates up.
Well, that's how things have gone. We've lost 3 cars. Jaworski didn't take the start of the race. Ian Manners and Rob Sutherland are both taken toes back to pit road, but at the front it's still Craig Williams, and this is the thing. This is a position that Craig is familiar with here in the World Touring Car Series. He knows how to lead these races. He's a robust defender of a lead as well. As Scheller looks to the inside, but then that's back in. Carsten Geisler as well is there trying to get involved in all of that. But the Carla Esports driver, Geisler, is there. Oh, Setsource is dropping down the order. Something has happened to Sindre. See him there in that Audi, that pink Audi. You can't miss that car. As they go back down the start and finish straight, and he is alongside. That's Stein Veenman.
Yeah, gets himself ahead and tries to cut the bleeding, but let's have a look at exactly what happens here behind the Craig Setup Shop car. Getting pushed by the Wave Italy machine. I get the feeling maybe pushing a little bit too much close quarters action. Angles towards the inside, 3 wide, a big send from the 54, and well, Sindre just gets himself collected in that one.
It was Vibe Nijkamp actually who sent a launch one down the inside of both of them, of both Setsource and Naveed Hussain. That's what then caused the contact. So it was contact between Naveed Hussain and Nijkamp to start with. Look at this again from above. So you can see Hussain is trying to get there with Setsource. But look at the car behind. The Impulse Racing car comes from a mile, well, it's not a mile back, but it's gone for a launch down the inside on a move that isn't really on, if you ask me. Contact between the two. Trick shot into the top left pocket. Thank you very much. That's position for me.
Of course, we do have stewards in this series, which will be looking at things post-race, and they will describe any penalties as appropriate after they've looked at all of the different angles to try and judge the fault of that one. But I think that one is relatively clear as Vivo was going for a move that was very optimistic indeed, and unfortunately makes contact with not one but 2 cars. It's just that Setsource was the one that came off the worst out of that.
certainly was. He'll have to start working his way through. We'll see Jerez down 7 places now from where he started in this race. But the 3 at the front here, the Carla Esports car, the Team Hursingveld car, and the Craig Setup Shop, the Was Cooking by Craig Setup Shop car at the front. Carla Esports, we mentioned it last week that they've only been racing TCRs about 10 months. But this is the first season series where they're actually racing in sprint format. They've always done endurance racing, so it's a new experience for them. And they're certainly getting a trial by fire down the inside, Karsten. He gets it to the apex. Nicely done there, but he's got. Oh, there's contact between the two of them. And that is why you need to just allow that little bit of space to your outside on corner exit. Don't go the wrong way too far, or else you'll get a disqualification. And he's got damage. He's got suspension damage. That car's going to have to go back to the pits.
We were just going over their backstory, potentially singing their praises of doing so well in a format that they're perhaps a little bit more unfamiliar with, but it ends in tears here in race number 2 for Karsten Geisler after contact with the Team Hursingveld car. Let's have a look at exactly what happens. We got a pretty good view of it on the live pictures, but there's the move to the inside there for Geisler. It's coming off the corner, that's the problem. Spinned into the barrier.
Now, you see, I've seen this a few times recently with drivers expecting the other car to go all the way out over the curb on the outside, whereas the other car has actually just used a tiny little bit of curb, straightened it up, and the other car just ends up turning across the nose. And we've seen it here. Look, he straightens up, but the other car's still coming across.
Absolutely, it's not one that you'd want to see. Of course, you want to see that battle continue on, maybe for another couple of corners, maybe even for another couple of laps, but it does end like that. Again, it's an assumption that that car's going to run wide and take the maximum of the track limits that they can take, but they're not obligated to take that line.
No, and I've seen it with when I've stewarded in series in the past. How drivers will say, well, I thought they were going to stay out there, and yeah, I know contacts happen, but it's not my fault. It is your fault, because just because you think doesn't mean that it's not what's happened. So yeah, I think that was just it was a plain mistake. There's no malice in that. It's just a mistake, is that? But that's unfortunately what can happen in close racing like this, and this is close pack racing here.
Yeah, and if you're the car defending, of course you're going to cause as much trouble for the car on your inside on exit as you can within the bounds of the regulations, aren't you? You're not just going to give them all the space that they could possibly want. You'll give them enough space that it's legal and nothing more, and trying to sort of cut the exit of the corner like that is a very good strategy, because that car on the inside it gets a poorer run, doesn't it? Can
I draw something to your attention? Geisler has just come out of pit road right in front of the race leader, so he's had to take a fast repair, which you do have, and you're entitled to use here in the series. It encourages drivers to carry on in the race, which is what Karsten is doing here, and he's come out about a second ahead of your race leaders.
Yeah, and well, these cars, and this series, we're not too used to dealing with lap traffic, because you don't expect lap traffic to be a big factor in a 20-minute event. But it's just the situation that we have here, and let's see how these leaders negotiate the situation there. You've got this long, this sort of string of cars currently down to P7 here at the moment, maybe even a bit of bunching further back inside the top 10 as well. So everyone keeping each other honest here, keeping each other in close contention, as we've got half the race to go now. So yeah, this is going to be interesting. I think because Geisler obviously has, like I said, had the fast repair. He gets a completely brand new car without any sort of damage on it whatsoever. It's not like he's come down and got optionals or required or anything like that. So he will be on the pace of this leading pack, because he was on the pace of the leading pack before the incident. So he has no obligation to really get out of the way here.
Well, you say that, but also there is written into the rules of the series, you know, as additional regulations. It's a kind of a half house in terms of lap traffic in this series. You know, if you think that Formula One, a blue flag means you basically have to move over and just let them waltz by. In this, you have to assist in the safe lapping of you. And Craig Williams is on the flasher there. He's not happy. He wants him out of the way. The thing is, so that was Geisler's first lap out the pits. Williams' time was a 49.0, 48.7 for Scheller behind. So Stefan is starting to put the pressure on. I can understand why Craig is getting on the flashers and saying, come on, please, can you just get out of my way? I want to focus on one thing only, and that's the guy in second place.
Yeah, but I don't think he necessarily has a leg to stand on here at the moment, because he's not close enough to even look down the inside or outside of that lap traffic. It's not enough to be a hindrance in terms of the actual track positioning here at the moment. It's not being blocked, not being slowed down whatsoever. Maybe mentally he's being distracted, yes, but that's a different issue, as now things might be a bit closer. Yeah, I think now is the point where you have a rightful complaint if you're Craig Williams, and there we go, down the inside. Yeah, he needed to do that, although that's chopping the nose off there, and he'll be feeling aggrieved about what happened in earlier on in this race. And remember, that's the car that he'll feel has wrecked him off of the track. He does still need to move out the way and allow Scheller to get by. We don't want to see shenanigans here. You know, let's have the racing fair, and if you've got a problem, protest it afterwards, but don't go blocking. Don't give the series administrators opportunity to penalise you further. There he goes, he moves over to the left hand side, but that's cost Scheller a good half a second. Oh, and a flash of the headlights. I think he needs to look back at the incident that happened though and realise that it was his mistake. I think so too, but it's hard to see as a driver in the heat of the moment, right? Because you feel like the world's against you when something happens, and when you look back with a clearer mind, maybe you do say, oh, well, maybe I could have done a little bit more in that situation. But yeah, the emotions running a little high there on the part of Geisler, and maybe in response to Scheller as well, because he did sort of motion towards him down that pit straight there as just to show the displeasure. But now that situation has all been resolved, of course, apart from what goes on in the stewards' room after this one. But now we've got a race on, at least for P2, as Craig Williams has been able to break away by almost a second there, as far as the race lead is concerned.
Yeah, I said I didn't want shenanigans. I was channeling my inner Martin Haven there, I think, of talking to the lap traffic there. Yeah, we'll move on, because this race for second place now, Scheller and Blackall. Jake is somebody, again, who is rapid. He knows what it takes to win races. Doesn't always have the best of luck, and he has to wake up early to compete in this championship. So you can understand why he would get a bit upset if he does get involved in incidents.
Yeah, the exact letter of the law goes like this. It's if a driver receives a blue flag, how they define that I don't know, because the race administrators can't see that which car has a blue flag in session. But pushing that question aside,
1.5 seconds.
Yeah, if a driver receives a blue flag, they must help to facilitate an overtake promptly within half a lap. So that's the time frame we're talking about, half a lap. It should happen within.
Now, do you count that for just one car, or for all of the cars in that queue? I mean, if I was a barrister, I would be there saying, well, Your Honour, I think, and the people of the jury, I think you'll find that actually my client did allow the leading car to go past in that half a lap, but then that restarts for the next car. That's what I would be arguing with the wording of that ruling. But then again, I am a bit of a pedant sometimes.
I think we all know that. But yeah, I mean, it's one to be argued. I have to wonder if there'll be a discussion about that at the end. I would have thought it's at least worth putting in the protest if you're Scheller. But let's have a look back at the battle between Cedric and Savinovic there, as they had a door-to-door moment. So Craig set up shop car into 8th place here for the moment, continuing to try to march through on this field, and Cedric's actually done much better than what McFarlane's been able to do, and what Niekamp has been able to do as well. Of course, McFarlane having that half spin in the early stages of the race hasn't really helped.
It doesn't, and it also will put a ton of heat through your front tyres as well when you correct it, because you give it a boot full of throttle. If you've never raced front wheel drive, if you get a slide and you're having to put opposite lock on, you put a boot full of throttle in to help turn the front of the car around whilst you're pulling opposite lock, and it just helps to straighten up the car. But it does put a lot of heat through your front tyres, and at a circuit where it was 38 degrees Celsius to start with track temperature, you don't really want to be doing that. We've got just under 3.5 minutes remaining in this race. Your leader is Craig Williams. He's also the leading AM driver in this race as well. Then Stefan Scheller is your best pro driver. Second place for him ahead of Jake Blackhall. They have actually slightly caught Craig Williams again from where they were just a lap ago. Ben Palmer in third ahead of Damien Harris. Andreas Gilman is the next best AM driver, 6th place overall. And then the third place AM driver, you have to look all the way down, I think, to Maciej Sakovic down in 19th place. He's gained 4 places in this race. Top position gainer in this race, though, is Dan Martin. He's gained, once again, 2 races in a row, 10 places gained.
Things going along at least better than they were here in race 2 for the RD Sin Sports driver. Just sort of, like I said, residing down in that P15 overall here at the moment, P13 in terms of the pro order, and he's got Ismael Jimenez right ahead. That might be an opportunity here in the final 2 minutes of this race, but we'll keep an eye on it, that's for sure.
It almost guarantees him as well a reverse grid. If you can get yourself to 12th place, it guarantees you a reverse grid position. So he'd like to move forward a couple more places, I would expect, but time is running out because we've only got 1:40 as we come across the line here, Conor.
We might see an AM winner here in race 2 of the meeting here at Jerez. Well, it's the second race meeting, second race. Easy to remember that. Scheller, although he's putting in a very, very good effort here, gap has been coming down little bit by little bit over the last couple of laps. I don't think it's quite going to be enough to really trouble that Craig setup shop number 77 ahead. A little bit of lap traffic that might factor in here further down the road, but again, we just have a minute to go here at this stage. Blackhall third place here. The lap traffic gets well out of the way and lets the entire field by.
Craig Williams not wanting to give a draft to Stefan Scheller, but I think Scheller is actually too far back for Craig to really be worried about giving that draft to. I don't think he would have given it enough for it to have an effect for him to be under attack going down that back straight. But we're into that second half of the lap here. 30 seconds remain here. I do think that this will be your last lap. Again, it'll be close. I just think that it was 1:40 as we cross the line, and they're doing 1:48. So I think we should see the checkered flag this time. But Williams, I mean, I said it in the opening of the race, he knows what it takes to win these reverse grid races, and he's just coming into the final corner for the final time here in race number 2 of the evening. Craig Williams, he was cooking by Craig's setup shop team, is going to win race number 2 ahead of Stefan Scheller and Jake Blackhall. That's your top 3. Rest of them coming through, finishing. It's tight further back for Wojciech Savinovic and David Baker. They almost came through absolute dead heat across the line for those two. Just in fact, I can tell you 0.02 of a second between Baker and Savinovic at the line. So incredibly close at the bottom end of your top 10.
Yeah, that is that is as close as you'd like there. At the very last moment, with the timing beam at the very end of the race to decide P9 overall here in this one. The rest of the runners heading their way through and across the line right now. But yeah, this is looking like a very intriguing race meeting, let's just say that. We've had a Ross McFarlane win in race 1. We've had a Craig Williams AM win in race 2. It's that weird situation where the pro driver actually finishes behind the AM driver, but yet they're 1-2 here as Stefan Scheller celebrates the top scoring position in terms of pro. But yeah, intriguing indeed. But before we go on any further, we do have to go to our spinny wheel.
Yeah, we do, absolutely. We've got the wheel to decide who is going to be on pole position this time round. So you saw that we're still on 16 from the last spin of the wheel, and that wheel will come to a stop here. And don't say it's going to be 16 again. It is! Oh my goodness, what are the odds on that? I think we're going to have words with Arjuna and see if we can increase decrease the chances of a single number coming up. But well, we'll take you through the results. But I know one person will be delighted with that as we head to the results. Then it is Craig Williams by the Was Cooking by CSS team. First place overall, first place in AM. Brilliant. That's exactly what the AM Championship leader would have wanted coming into race number 2 of the evening. Stefan Scheller is the best placed pro driver in second place for Team Hersingveld. Jake Blackall, third place for Pure Sims Esports ahead of Ben Palmer. Damien Harris, fifth for Wave Italy. That's a good result for him, gain of 4 places in that race ahead of the Impulse Racing driver of Andreas Gilman, second place in AM after winning AM in race number 1. 6th place for him. Jack Sedgwick, gain of 7 places up into 7th ahead of Alexandre Gonzalez. David Baker, as I say, 2 thousandths of a second separating him and Wojciech Savinovic in 10th place. 11th for our championship leader Ross McFarlane ahead of Ibe Nijkamp. Esteban Rodriguez and Ismail Habib Jimenez on 14th place. The front row for race number 3 of the evening is Dan Martin, and on pole position, Dr. Naveed Hussain for Wave Italy. Sindra Setsols just misses out on that reverse grid pole ahead of Tim Reinhardt. Magic Sakovic and Martin Shirley round out your top 20. Sakovic, of course, being the third placed AM driver in the results from race number 2. Tony Weishaft in 21st ahead of Mickey Pollard. Andy Shield and Stuart Bickley then the next 2 with Alexander House. Patrick Faulkner, Damon Mulqueen, Josef Villa with Elliot Roberts and Stein Wienman. And then the final cars in this race. A couple that did not finish in this. In fact, just one. 2 that did not finish. Scott Malcolm is in 31st, the last of the lead lap drivers. Karsten Geisler, who we saw in that incident with Stefan Scheller, down in 32nd after his fast repair. Ian Manners as well took repairs and was down there in 33rd. Rob Sutherland did not finish the race, and Slavomir Jaworski did not start the race. So that is your 35 car field for race number 2 of the evening, but you do want to stick around because there is a third race coming up for you here in the World Touring Car Series. Paul Smith and Connery Maddock here in the commentary booth for you once again. And well, Connery, it was an intriguing race number 2. A couple of incidents there. I think the big incident that we saw in the top 3, Karsten Geisler, I think Geisler will look back at that and think, do you know what, actually, yeah, I turned myself there.
Yeah, it's definitely one of the bigger talking points of the race there. But I think you assessed it correctly there, Paul. It's you can't just assume a car's going to go somewhere. That's the long and short of it. They might squeeze you a bit tighter off the corner, and you have to learn how to deal with that, unfortunately, and try and not make contact. It's unfortunate it ended the way it did, and maybe the responses weren't quite sportsmanlike in a sense as well. But we'll have to put that out of our minds. The drivers will have to put it out of their minds and move on to this third and final race today.
Yeah, we certainly will. It wasn't the tidiest, was that with that incident, and but really good result for Craig Williams, not just in terms of getting the race win, but for an AM driver to get a race win. If you're new to the championship, there's not separate points for pro and AM drivers. You've got set points for the positions that you finish in. So him getting a win there is huge in AM.
Yeah, it is absolutely huge. There's really no overstating it. It's going to give him a massive buffer in terms of points in that AM standing. It's not often that we get an AM winner. I mean, if I had the stats to hand, I would be able to tell you how many times it happened. I'm pretty sure it's not the first time anyway. But it's going to be a massive help. Massive help. And it allows him just to relax potentially a little bit more. As far as the championship is concerned, of course, you can't relax so much at the very early stages. Of course, you could have a run of bad results, and all of a sudden, you're back into the thick of things here. But Craig Williams definitely very dominant in terms of points early on here. It's up to Shirley, Pollards, all the others further down the AM field to really step up to the plate now after that massive result.
Yeah, I mean, Shirley finished 20th overall in that race. He was second place coming into that round. The series admins are pretty on top of it, actually, I must say.
Yeah.
They've been trying to update the points during each and every round of the championship. So after the first race, it hasn't updated for me for race number 2, but it was a 13-point gap between Williams and Shirley. That is going to be massive now because of that race win for Craig Williams. But we have to remember, there are drop scores in this championship, so a championship's never over until the final day.
Yeah, absolutely not. It's the old adage of inserts. It's not over until whatever the final the final race here. But you are right though. The first place finish, no matter what category you're in, whether it's pro or AM, 75 points. That's an incredible amount. When you expect usually AM drivers usually to be finishing outside the top 10, maybe around the 13th, 14th position for an AM leader, that's 48, 47 points. So you're getting to the point where you're getting 20, 30 points over what a normal AM class win would really get under normal circumstances by actually finishing first overall. So that is a huge gap.
It certainly is. It is an incredible result for him. Stefan Scheller, I mean, we didn't really... I mean, we saw him trying to attack in that race number 2. New to the series, of course, in that Team Heusingbelt outfit. And put on a good display there in that race. And to hold off Jake Blackhall, who again is another one who is experienced in touring car racing. That's a good effort from Stefan.
Yeah, I was impressed with his defensive driving, that's for sure. It's again, we'll have to see whether this is a trend that continues on through, whether or not it's just a good race weekend or not. But if he's able to continue to put up these good performances, then potentially that might be a sign of pretty good things as far as the championship in the pro order is concerned. But I think it's probably a little bit too soon for us to be talking about that, especially when it's the second race meeting.
Yeah, we like to talk about championships and points, but as you say, we're 5 races into the season. I mean, they have updated my end now. The AM Championship is 45 points between first and second. 5 points separate first and second in the pro standing. So, this is the thing. We're in that early phase of the season. You don't normally start looking at a championship table until about sort of at least a quarter of the way through, do you?
Yeah, because I mean, there's not all that much you can draw from the first couple of results here. Of course, you know, we always talk about, oh, you got to get off to a good start. It makes things easier in the middle and latter portions of the season if you do that. But to be able to extrapolate from this point will be very, very premature. So I'm looking forward to how the rest of the season pans out. I mean, we've even got one more race to go here at Jerez, so I probably shouldn't speak too soon with regards to that. But it's looking like a very competitive championship in not only the Pro but the AM category at this stage as well. I think that much we can say, at least with the races that we've seen already.
Yeah, certainly. So you mentioned about race number 3. Well, that is just a few moments away. But let's just step aside and hear from the series sponsors here. But make sure you do stick around for race number 3 of meeting number 2 of the World Touring Car Series. Welcome back then to coverage of the World Touring Car Series here on RaceSpotTV. Paul Smith and Conor Maddock here in the commentary booth for the final race of the evening then. Race number 3, and it is into the evening here. And I think the drivers will be happy with that, Connery, because that track temperature, it's more what it was in race number 1 of the evening.
27 degrees in the air though, so still very warm as far as evenings go. So that track temperature doesn't have that much to fall from that 50 degrees Celsius actually. So those are very, very interesting conditions indeed. I have to say, at least we have these conditions and not the real life conditions that are happening in Spain and the southern part of Europe right now, because we'll be seeing air temps over 40 degrees at that point. So yeah, I think this is rather temperate compared to this.
It certainly is. And of course, if people didn't see it yesterday, iRacing put out a developer sort of diary on their website, giving a little bit of a look at what is coming in the near future of iRacing. And they showed up quite a few screenshots of well, actually, one of the screenshots was this very track itself, in a very damp state, with the puddles on the track as well. I think there's a lot of people are waiting for that weather to come into iRacing, but I'm personally happy waiting that little bit longer just to make sure that everything is done right.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, they could release it in whatever state it's in right now, but people wouldn't be happy because there may be glaringly obvious bugs, errors, you know, inaccurate behaviors, things like that.
The tyres?
Yeah,
exactly. You've got to work on the tyres as well as the graphical and the track surface. And, you know, there's a lot of things to get right with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, they're using their experience from the dirt side of the dirt road and the oval side of things to really inform their decisions with regards to how the track should behave when wet as well. And they've done a lot of work. I mean, I've seen a lot of the work that they've done, and it seems like just magic at times, because they're really trying to simulate basically every single aspect of how a wet track behaves, where the water will pool, you know, having that informed by their laser scans, so they know where all the dips in the road are, where the water will form, and how the water will run across the surface, how that will affect the performance of the cars as well, and how the tyres will interact with it. It's a lot of systems that are really communicating with each other, and that is very, very hard to do. I mean, I have a background in computer science, and that when you have these multi-system things with all these different complicated variables, that's where it gets to be a bit of a nightmare to try and get right.
I tell you what, though, getting this series in the wet, I mean, the driving's a bit crazy at times in the series. At the best of times, get them with wet weather, I'd open a whole new book of racing driver excuses.
It would, but I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wasn't looking forward to the chaos it causes.
I mean, that'll be new, coming soon. As it would be said, the wind direction has changed slightly, I can tell by those flags, compared to race number 2 of the evening. But we are getting ourselves set for race number 3 of the evening. It's round number 6. And, well, the drivers will be getting themselves set for the start of this race, and we will be able to go through that grid for you. And it is Dr. Naveed Hussain who will be on the front row of the grid for Wave Italy. Alongside him, Dan Martin, who's had to be patient this round after starting race 1 at the back of the grid. He's on the front row of this race. Ismail Habib Jimenez on row number 2 with Esteban Rodriguez alongside him. Vibe Nijkamp and Ross McFarlane, those two cannot be separated through the first 2 races. They're on row number 3. Row number 4 then for Wojciech Savinovic, and another 2 drivers who can't be separated because David Baker's alongside him once again. Alexandre Gonzalez and Jack Sedgwick then on row number 5. Row 6 for Andreas Gilman and Damien Harris. 7th row of the grid for Ben Palmer and Jake Blackhall, with Stefan Scheller and Craig Williams, race winner from race number 2, starting on row number 8. Row 9, Sindre Setzels and Tim Reinhardt. 10th row of the grid is Magic Sakovic and Martin Shirley, with Tony Weishaft and Mickey Pollard, Andy Shield and Stuart Bickley on row number 12. Row 13 is Alexander House and Patrick Faulkner, Damon Mulqueen and Josef Villa then sharing row number 14. Row 15, Elliot Roberts and Stein Vernman. Scott Malcolm and Karsten Geisler then share the 16th row of the grid with row number 17, Ian Manners and Slavomir Jaworski. One driver not taking part in this final race is Rob Sutherland, so we're down to 34 cars for the final race of the evening here. It's round number 6 of the World Touring Car Series, presented to you by Bookkicker. Tremendous to have them on board once again for this championship. 3M as well, another one of the series sponsors. But the drivers will be looking to the starters gantry. The revs rise. It's a long hold, a really long hold, but they're away. It's green flag, and Dan Martin got a good initial launch there. It's whether Naveed Hussain gets the second phase right, and he does. Down towards turn number 1 they go, so the front 2 are as they started, and it's 2 by 2 behind them, because Jimenez and Rodriguez, McFarlane and Nijkamp are swapping places, although Nijkamp's trying to come back at McFarlane there for that one. Through 3 into turn number 4 for the first time in this race. Again, cold tyres will be a factor, not quite up to temperature or pressure. Into turn number 5 then, this fast right-hander Honda versus Veloster. It's going to be the Honda that just has the high ground out of turn number 5, downhill and into turn number 6 with a bit of a tailwind down here for this final race. Into the braking zone for turn 6, hard down to first gear and through the go. And so far so good, Connery, for everyone out there.
Savinovic making some good progress there down the inside of McFarlane as McFarlane tries to fight back through the left-hander here as well, side by side between the two veterans of the series here as McFarlane, he does hang around the inside there. That's a great place to be on such a sweeping corner there, and now Savinovic has to potentially be conscious of David Baker as well, the other Pure Sims car, but Savinovic, he's not done with this fight with Ross whatsoever. Still maintains the overlap until the very last moment. He'll have to slot in line single file now, though.
Yeah, it's very much one line through these next two corners at 11 and 12. But if he gets a good run, Baker could have a look at Wojciech. Looks to the outside. He's not thinking of an overtake there, is David. So just stays where he is as they come out of the final corner for the opening lap. Here it is. Dr. Naveed Hussain in first place with Dan Martin second and Jimenez in third place. Damon Mulqueen is at a standstill on track, as is Andy Shield. So something's happened to those two, and Mulqueen, well, the back of his car is severely damaged. He's got suspension damage, I imagine, as well. I think that's his race pretty much done there. Let's have a look back at the replay here, Connery.
Let's have a look indeed. The Synergy car. Let's see. Mulqueen involved a gaggle of cars. Ooh, noises. Straight into the Freems Monster car there. Have to try and make sense of this.
That
yeah.
is T-boned, yeah.
Yeah. Well,
very little that. Yeah, it was the what's cooking car, the pink car. I think it was possibly Elliot Roberts. Elliot Roberts is the 78. Has made contact there with Damon. Now whether Damon's come across on him a little bit or not, it was very hard to say from there. There was also another car ended up heading towards pit road. Did actually keep it on track though. So we'll have one final look at this and then we'll go back to live pictures. But here we are. Elliot Roberts gets the run on Mulqueen, has a look. I think there's a little bit of a lines converging there.
Yeah, it is, and well on the live pictures, Jimenez, number 46 car around, going to struggle to rejoin in a rapid fashion here with the string of cars trying to work its way through on him. We'll have to see exactly what has happened here. Back onto the replay machine we go.
He was third place at the start of the lap. There's a look down the inside from Ross McFarlane. So he's getting hung out to dry there a little bit. And he's turned across the nose, I think, of Wojciech Savinovic. And then he's just had to get on the anchors so that he's a predictable static object for others to avoid. Well, all that shenanigans were going on. Dr. Naveed Hussain at the front is slowly pulling away from Dan Martin, 2.5 tenths of a second faster on that last lap over Dan Martin, and Dan has got to worry about Esteban Rodriguez behind him, and Vipe Nijkamp, good evening for him in this third race because he's fourth place.
Yeah, looking pretty good indeed, and definitely has the pace at this stage. He was just 0.3 of a second faster than Rodriguez was on that previous lap there, so positive sign certainly capped there. McFarlane continuing on as well. He's in a bit of no man's land in between Nijkamp and Baker here for the moment. And then the string of cars behind them, led by Savinovic. And you've got Harris and Cedric here involved in this grouping here as well. So lots of potential for some action here as drivers try to work their way through. But as we've seen in the two races that we've had, it seems to be quite difficult to complete passes here. It's not impossible, as we've seen already, but it requires a brave move on the brakes in most cases to be able to get yourself alongside, and even then it's no guarantee.
Yeah, and it is difficult. It does appear difficult to overtake around here. Of course, the venue of the Spanish Grand Prix for many years back in the 80s. It was only when the Circuit Barcelona Catalunya took over in 1991 that they actually stopped hosting the Spanish Grand Prix here. The last Grand Prix held here was 1997, although did they come here in the pandemic year? That's just got me thinking.
Yeah, I think they did. I think they did. I want to say yes, but it's a very tentative yes.
Well, anyway, it is a championship that really it's one of those where this track it is still quite a wide circuit as this one, so it is a sort of Grand Prix level venue, and it is somewhere where you can get a bit of space out there. No, it didn't.
Oh no! I mean, there was rumours that it was. I think.
Yes.
That's why that's crossed in my head, because it still says the last race was 1997 here, which happens to be the year I was born. So.
Thank you, Connery. Of course, I can't go. We can't have a race at Jerez without mentioning the 1997 European Grand Prix and the qualifying session. Now, do you know what the qualifying time was between the top three in that qualifying session?
No, I don't. I know the story, but I don't know the
I know it off by heart. Position gain over Alex Gonzalez. In fact, Gonzalez is battling with Sindra Setsos in all. The lap times that these cars are doing here, I mean, 1 minute 48.375. So, I mean, they're only what about? Oh dear, that's Magic Sakovic in the wall. So. Yeah, that's an issue for Majek, and he'll have to park that car and get a free repair.
I do apologise if over the last couple of moments we had a bit of dodgy audio going on, so I don't know if how much of the point you were making was caught there, Paul, but let's have a look at what happens to Sakovic here as he heads this way. It looks like a solo car incident. Oh, back ends get out. Oh, overcorrection as well. Trajectory only going into the barrier and nothing more. That's a hard one to take, hard one to see as well.
Yeah, Magic, do you know what? He was given the nickname of the Magic Sandwich by Will Vincent a number of years ago, and I don't think that was very magic, unfortunately, for my teammate. But I have to be completely unbiased here in the commentary box, but come on, Magic, you better. Back to live pictures. Naveed Hussain, he's keeping a sort of a solid 1 second gap, isn't he, at the front? He's not been able to pull away much more.
No, yeah, it's sort of been stabilised at that about a second, 1.1 second mark here at the moment. It could be that Hussain was just settled himself into a rhythm and potentially has decided not to push on any further, just conserve a little bit of life in the tyres if he requires it here at the very end of the race. Dan Martin, though, he's lost 0.5 of a second that last lap over Rodriguez. It's not a massive amount, but either way, it's something that's notable. Anyway, given that we did have an audio dropout as you were describing what happened in 1997 European Grand Prix, after this battle's done between Rodriguez and Niekamp, you might want to recap that.
Oh no, it's too late, the point's gone now. Oh, I'll tell you what, Niecamp's doing a stellar job because he's having to attack Rodriguez, but he's also having to defend from McFarlane. Now again, McFarlane and Rodriguez, they're in two separate cars, in two separate teams. The paints aren't matching, but they're out the same awning, they're out the same Pure Sims awning. So they are competitors on the track, but they are people who will maybe sort of help each other out where advantageous. And I know Ross will be there saying, you know, give us a slipstream or hold him back for me or something like that. But Rodriguez, he's got his own race to worry about here.
I think he does. And well, Farland continuing to really lean on that rear bumper of Kneecap here, and actually putting him under a decent amount of pressure. But it seems like the roles have been reversed a little bit compared to the first race that we saw, as it was Kneecap that was trying to get in McFarlane's mirrors. Now it's the other way around. Let's see how they deal with the roles being reversed.
I'll tell you what would help that Impulse Racing car would be a RaceSpot logo. Guaranteed to give you an extra 0.2 of a second per lap. It's a fact. And it must be a fact because I said it was a fact.
Yeah, and we know that you're just the fountain of truth here at RaceSpot. So we take everything you say as gospel, and we will just leave it at that. And you can see, you know, with the pressure that McFarlane's been putting on, maybe that's the RaceSpot's thinking making all the difference.
Well, what it is doing, though, it's dropping them back from second place, Dan Martin. So Martin, he doesn't need to worry about those behind. He's just focusing forward here and looking to Dr. Naveed Hussain. Naveed is a rapid driver, we know that, but the last lap, Dan Martin was quicker by 0.2 of a second. So Dan does have pace in his Honda Civic over that Audi RS3 LMS, the Gen 1 RS3. I'll tell you what, getting to get up close and personal with a few of these cars, like the I didn't get to see the Gen 1 RS3, also got to see the Veloster, the Civic as well. They are really, really good machines, and they're menacing.
Yeah, they are absolutely incredible. And it would be great to experience them in the real world as well. I do need to get myself to view one of those events, that's for sure. I need to see more in real life racing in general. I think that's the solution to the problem there, Paul.
Find yourself a Peter Mackay.
Yeah, I mean, Peter, if you are listening, you know my Discord. That's all I'm saying. Like, I'm not trying to encourage, but it's there. Okay.
Top three then is Naveed Hussain, Dan Martin and Esteban Rodriguez. The best AMs, Andreas Gilman in 14th place, is only one place ahead of Craig Williams, who's in 15th place. Martin Shirley, 17th place, although he's been battling away a little bit further down, and that is with Tony Weishaft, who had the best of weeks so far, but he does make a stern move, and that's actually going to leave that 24 of Stuart Bickley. Late dive from Bickley on Mickey Pollard, and Pollard says, I'll be taking that place back.
Absolutely, of course, both of those drivers from the same outfit. And you really don't want to have too much fighting in between two teammates, but sometimes it is inevitable, and sometimes, touch wood, it can end in tears. Let's hope it doesn't between these two in these final 5 minutes that we have to run. They're scoring pretty well in the AM class at the moment. Of course, this is P4 and 5 in that particular category at the moment. Gilman still leads the AM category as we almost do a F1 director move there as we got away from the battle just as it was about to start.
Where was the Stroll graphic?
Where's the Stroll graphic? There we go. Oh, Geisler on the outside.
Yeah, now this is a recovery drive for Geisler here. He's got the inside line. Does he get the move stuck? The answer is yes, he does. That's a good finish off of that move for Geisler. It's 12 places from the start of this race for Karsten. As look at this now, top three, they're absolutely neck and neck, and they're bringing David Baker into this. So just when you think it isn't bad enough with one Pure Sims Esports car behind you. You're soon going to have two.
Yeah, big problems indeed for NoCamp here as he has the Sim Lab, which is basically Pure Sim's car ahead of him as well. So it's being surrounded by Pure Sims at the moment, which is not ideal. You've got no help there, and you've got no one to bail you out basically, or try and play rear gunner, or try to hassle the cars around you. You've got a single team that is in front and behind you that will all be working together to make sure you're filed towards the back of the train, and that is never a great position to be in.
I've been in that position in this very championship, so yes, I know what it's like, and it's very much a case of, I suppose it's after you then, boys. they all work together and try and get themselves the best results possible, but they are fighting for their own championships as well. Let's not forget about that. It's all well and good being teammates, but at the end of the day, I know Ash Sutton, who's the team boss of Pure Sims, he'll be very much encouraging the drivers to say, as long as you keep it clean, yeah, fight it out on track.
And we have seen that on previous occasions when they know they've got the team's championship secured, and they realise, they recognise that drivers might be pretty close in the drivers' championship, so that they can fight for it. If they're not close in the drivers' championship, then there might be a bit more coordination and sort of team orders coming in that instance. But all things are equal, and there's no wider team goal to go for. Why not have them fight? But NiCamp is doing pretty well to try and keep McFarlane at bay at the moment, keep him that, half a second behind at this point, and actually try and set himself his sights ahead and try and overtake that SimLab Civic right ahead. That's been sort of been big in his windshield for the last couple of laps.
There comes a point where you've been following a car in front of you for so long that you end up copying their lines, copying their braking points, and end up going at their pace. And I think we're almost in the danger of that. Now, speaking of danger, I've just noticed Dan Martin's making a bit of a charge on Naveed Hussain at the front, because that gap was a second. It has come down a little bit. Last lap across the line, as we should be getting the white flag there. 148.8 for Naveed Hussain, 148.5 for Dan Martin. All it takes is one mistake, and we could be on for a race change in the lead.
Could be. That was not the best lap from Hussain. Martin gaining a couple of tenths of a second. Would need to gain a bit more than a couple of tenths of a second if he's going to be able to take this race win. But like you said, just needs that one little error, and all of a sudden the race completely changes there for those front two. Meanwhile, the closer battle is for P3, of course. Rodriguez maintaining that third step on the podium for now, but is there a big dive? Is there a big move upcoming from NiCamp behind to try and get himself on the third step?
I think that pretty much that was his last opportunity there, going through into turn 6, because you've got a lot of sweeping corners, and these cars, I mean, they're good race cars, but they're not the best at the long sweeping corners, I will say. The two leaders, 6.5 tenths, so Dan has closed up a little bit of a gap, not much at the front, but it's still Ross McFarlane's putting the pressure on Vibe NiCamp in front of him. Just 3 more corners to go for these drivers. Make that 2 corners to go. It's 1 corner to go. It's the last lap of the race. Naveed Hussain taking a wide arc into the final corner. The checkered flag is ready for him, and the Wave Italy driver of Naveed Hussain takes the win. Dan Martin second. What's happened to Rodriguez? Is his connection gone here? We'll have to wait for everything to pan out, but right now our timing screen is showing yes, it's just corrected now, and he'll be happy about that. 3rd place for Esteban Rodriguez.
Oh, I got a bit worried there as he basically fizzled out just as they were coming up to the line, and sometimes iRacing doesn't necessarily count the lap if you do that across the line, and so that was a bit weird there. the graphics are really sort of indecisive about this one. It's sort of settled on Rodriguez third here at the moment, but I did have a couple of moments where his speed was minus 59,000 kilometers an hour, which is obviously can't be right. But yeah, Andreas Gilman though,
quite an achievement.
Andreas Gilman is our AM winner in this third and final race of the race meeting. Craig Williams as well, though, with a solid P2 in AM finish as well. It's been a great day for that Craig setup shotgun.
Yeah, it certainly has, and he'll be delighted with how Jerez has gone for him. But let us take you through your round number 6 results here. Meeting number 2 of the World Touring Car Series here on RaceSpotTV. And we'll get you those results up on screen, because we can tell you for certain though that Dr. Naveed Hussain is the race winner. 6/10 of a second between him for the Wave Italy driver and Dan Martin for RD Sim Sport. A good recovery after starting all the way at the back of the grid in race number 1. Esteban Rodriguez does get to hold on to that third place for Pure Sim SimLab, with Vibe Nijkamp Impulse Racing just 0.3 of a second back in 4th place. Ross McFarlane and David Baker make it a good night for Pure Sims Esports in 5th and 6th place. Wojciech Savinovic, Jack Sedgwick, Sindre Setsos and Damien Harris rounds out the top 10. Wave Italy 1st and 10th. Ben Palmer 11th ahead of Alexandre Gonzalez, with Stefan Scheller in 13th. Then the best of your AMs. Andreas Gilman, that's another AM win for him in 14th place after his AM win in race number 1 and 11th for the Impulse Racing driver. Craig Williams, he won race 2, finishes 2nd in AM, 15th overall in the results of race number 3, ahead of Jake Blackhall. Martin Shirley for RD Sim Sport will round out the AM podium in 17th overall. Tony Weishafts for Team Racing Nederland, with Carsten Geisler on the recovery drive after race 2 incident. Mickey Pollard wins 20th place in this third race. Stuart Bickley's teammate right behind him in 21st ahead of Team Reinhardt. Slavomir Jaworski with the charge forward for him. That was a gain of 11 places for Slavomir. Then Ian Manners, Patrick Faulkner, Josef Villa, Ismail Habib Jimenez after his instant down at turn number 10. He made it back to 27th. Scott Malcolm 28th ahead of Stein Wienman, who was a lap down. Maciej Sakovic a lap down as well for Team Mad. And the last 2 runners who finished this race, Alexander House and Damon Mulqueen. Elliot Roberts, who had that T-bone incident with Andy Shield, both did not finish the race. So there we go. That is the 3 races done with here for tonight on RaceSpotTV. I mean, Connery, quite really, I will say, really clean racing out there. I think the opening 2 rounds of this championship have shown that when the drivers want to, they can really put on a good display of hard racing.
Yep, they absolutely can, and it's definitely been a sign of improvement, you know, throughout not just the two race meetings that we've had so far this season, but even across season to season, how the driving standards has gotten bit by bit better and better as the seasons have gone on. You know, it wasn't too long ago that, you know, basically every single race we would have a very, very chaotic start, and apart from the third race. Last race meeting, we've had very, very clean starts, and we've had very reasonable levels of racecraft out there. Of course, there's going to be bits and pieces here that are a bit sketchy. That's just the nature of racing, and especially in this discipline as well, which has been known for a bit more of a aggressive approach. But again, it's all very, very positive signs for everyone. And I think the drivers should be quite proud of themselves with how they've handled the vast majority of situations here.
Yeah, absolutely, and it certainly has been a tremendous display from our drivers in the Touring Car Series these opening 2 rounds of the championship. But I would say that the driving standards improved round about halfway through Season 2 when a certain commentator for RaceSpotTV went and withdrew from the series. I mean... that would be me, if you were wondering who that was. You know, the driving
I'm not
standards
saying
did
anything.
improve once I was off the grid.
I'm not saying anything, but I mean, you've returned, and it hasn't all gone to pot. So I think that curse is over.
Well, I'm in the commentary box. That means I'm not driving, so the track is safer. That is for sure. But really good racing from the opening 2 rounds of the championship. Next time, as I'm trying to get my my championship standings updated here as well, to see if we're getting some updates on that. But next time out, we are heading over to Monza. Now, if ever there is a track where incidents can happen, it's at the Rettifilo, the Roggia, down to Ascari. It is a track where incidents can happen, but it's also a track where we can get thousandths of a second between race winners.
Yes, it absolutely is. Part of me wishes there was a longer run out of the final corner to the start-finish line. I don't like the trend over the last 20 years of having the timing line behind all the starting grid spots. Makes photo finishes less common. However, this should be an absolute barnstormer of a race day at Monza, as it's basically all bets are off at that stage, isn't it? It's much more like a sort of super speedway event, but in road form, especially in cars which have quite a significant draft. So I can't wait to see that one. It might be an opportunity for drivers that, you know, mid-pack usually to try and get themselves to the forefront with a good qualifying lap, for example, and then try and hold track position during the race. But yeah, I can't wait for it. It usually delivers some pretty good racing, some intriguing racing at times as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So make sure you do join us for that next week. That's on RaceSpotTV at 7:50 in the evening, British summer time. But I'm afraid that is all that we have got time for here in the World Touring Car Series. It's been a tremendous day's racing. Congratulations to all our race winners. Until next week, it's goodbye.